We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Thursday, August 6th here in Seoul. I'm Isujin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Chihan.
Good to be here.
Good to have you, Elsa Brooks, with us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Good to have you, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we move toward the end of the work week, we're turning our attention to a highly debated issue that has sparked discussions about medical ethics, legal boundaries, and the rights of both women and unborn children. A recent court decision involving a 36-week pregnancy has reignited debate over where legal limits should be drawn and how such cases should be handled. So to start us off, Chian, can you explain the court ruling on this abortion case?
Of course. Well, this case has actually sparked intense public debate across Korea. The case involved a woman who underwent an abortion at 36 weeks of pregnancy. After the baby was delivered alive, medical staff actually killed the baby, leading to murder charges against the mother and the medical staff involved. It's quite important to know that this was not a case under Korea's former abortion law. It was prosecuted as a murder case because the baby was literally born alive. The case came to light after the woman uploaded a video documenting her abortion experience, the whole procedures on YouTube. In the first trial, the mother was found guilty because the court believed she knew what would happen. However, the appeals court found her not guilty, ruling that she believed the baby had already died in the womb and did not know the baby was born alive. So for me, this case goes far beyond one individual or one court decision. It raises difficult questions about life, responsibility, ethical issues, of course, and the limits of the law. And personally, I do believe that these issues deserve thoughtful discussions rather than one quick judgment, because every case can involve very different circumstances. Well, the verdict may be final, but the debate is still going on now.
Right, and the controversy did highlight the country's legal current gap. While abortion is no longer criminalized, lawmakers have yet to establish actual clear rules on issues and also medical standards. So, Brooke, do you have anything to add to this? What were your thoughts on this ruling in this case?
Well, definitely a deeply unsettling and disturbing case. I think regardless of where you stand on abortion, I would say, in fact, even the most staunch pro-choice advocates would not advocate for a baby being killed after being delivered alive. Most would consider that homicide. Most people, when they think of abortion, they think of a procedure that happens while the baby is still within the womb, which is why this legal case turned out differently. I think where opinions begin to differ is people that are pro-life believe that abortion is the equivalent to what happened here, that abortion is considered murder, regardless of which stage it happens in the pregnancy, whereas people that are pro-choice would say that it should not constitute a crime. So that is kind of the debate that we're going to have today. But I think in this particular case, it really comes down to whether the courts believed that the woman knew that the baby had been born alive or not. And the appeals court seems to think that she was unaware, that she thought that it was a stillbirth and she only consented to the disposal of the remains, that she did not consent to killing the baby outside of the womb. So I think that, you know, that's what their ruling was, and we have to respect that. The responsibility would then lie with the people that gave her that misinformation and did not inform her properly of the status of the baby. But it is a very difficult case. Again, it raises very profound legal and ethical questions, and I do hope that it leads to clearer legislation and safeguards, because perhaps if there were gestational limits here in Korea in terms of abortion law, then she wouldn't have been able to even have that procedure in the first place. So there would be some safeguards, and hopefully we can prevent a tragedy like this from happening again.
So now we're going to move on to our weekly debate coming off of that case. And so few issues generate as much discussion as abortion, and touching on personal freedom. It touches on medical ethics, the rights of unborn children, and also the role of the law. And around the world, countries have taken quite different approaches to this, making this one of the most complex and decisive social issues today. So starting with right here at home, how does South Korea's abortion law compare with other countries, Jian?
Well, first of all, I mentioned this 36-week case was a murder case because in Korea, the criminal provisions on abortion lost their effect in 2021 following a constitutional court ruling back in 2019. However, some comprehensive follow-up legislation has been introduced, and it left key issues such as gestational limits, which mean the maximum number of weeks for an abortion, medical procedures and costs without a clear legal framework. Well, other countries have much clearer rules. For example, in France, abortion is generally permitted up to 14 weeks of pregnancy, and the cost is fully covered by the government. The national health insurance covered those costs, and the government in France also regulates designated clinics and medical facilities where abortions can be performed. And also in the Netherlands, abortion is generally allowed up to 24 weeks with procedures provided through authorized medical services. And of course, residents and workers, the cost is also covered by the public funding or health insurance. So the real issue here may not be legality, but clarity for us.
Right, so it is quite interesting that while many countries set clear legal standards, South Korea is still navigating a legal gray area without a clearly updated legislation. And the U.S. has also seen major legal changes that have reshaped the abortion debate in recent years. So, Brooke, can you explain how the abortion laws kind of evolved over the years in the U.S.?
Certainly. So for almost 50 years, abortion rights were protected nationwide. It was considered a federal issue. But then in 2022, everything changed when the U.S. Supreme Court overturned the landmark Roe v. Wade decision, which again had protected abortion rights for nearly 50 years. Now, ever since then, the federal government no longer guarantees abortion as a constitutional right. It is considered a state issue. What that means is that each individual state can decide what they want to do in terms of abortion policy. And so there is no single uniform policy across the United States anymore. And as a result, access now depends entirely on where you live. So some states have passed laws that protect abortion access through much or all of the pregnancy, while others have enacted near total bans, or they prohibit abortion after 6 or 12 weeks when a lot of women don't even know that they're pregnant yet. So this means that someone living in one state might have to travel to another in order to access that care if the state that they live has very strict abortion laws. And of course, this can put limits on low-income families who may not have access to be able to travel in that way to get that care. So there are a lot of questions around this. Supporters of the law say that states should have the right to protect unborn lives if they so choose to do that, while others say that women's reproductive rights should not be decided by her zip code. So this has definitely become one of the most divisive political issues in the United States today.
Right, and that really shows how differently governments can approach the same issue even within a single country. Ultimately, the biggest question is whether abortion should be restricted by law even in the first place. So let's find out what our panelists will have to say on this. So, Jian, starting with you, should, in your opinion, abortion be legal?
Well, I reckon that pregnancy has a profound impact on a woman's body and her entire life. But at the same time, an unborn baby also deserves legal and moral protection. Having experienced pregnancy and childbirth myself, I find it difficult to see a fetus simply as a part of women's body or a matter of personal choice. Well, as the pregnancy progresses, you begin to feel the baby's kicks and movement, respond to that, and gradually build a real bond between the mother and the baby. So at that point, it no longer feels like just one life. There are two. In exceptional cases such as when the mother's life or health is at serious risk, or in case of rape, I do believe that abortion may be justified. But apart from those circumstances, especially in the later stages of pregnancy, I do believe that the law should provide much stronger protection for the unborn baby. At the same time, I don't think the burden and responsibility should fall on only women alone. Society, yes, and the legal system also have a responsibility to provide support, clear guidance, and protection for them. So protecting the women and protecting life shouldn't be seen as opposing goals. Some choices carry two lives, but not one, only one.
So Jian, you talked about one side of this. What's another perspective that someone can have on this case?
Well, I think there are two important interests that everyone is trying to protect here, which is the value of the developing human life and, of course, the woman's right to make decisions about her own body and her future. This is what we call pro-choice, aka my body, my choice. And the difficult question here is, how does the law draw the line? We talked earlier about how different countries have different gestational limits. Some have 14 weeks, some have 24 weeks. How does one decide morally when does this constitute a fully formed life? And honestly, I don't know. It's a very, very difficult question. Personally, I can understand why abortion would be available in cases like rape, incest, or when it seriously threatens the mother's health. So I think that it's good for women to be able to make a decision in such dire and desperate situations. At the same time, I also understand why people would feel uncomfortable with abortion being used just like regular birth control. It should be a decision that's taken very, very seriously. But ultimately, I think moving away from the debate of abortion, I think good policy should address unwanted pregnancies. That really is the root of the issue. So I would hope to see better sex education, access to contraception, financial support, and stronger resources for women that are going through these difficult situations. So my hope would be that abortion becomes increasingly rare, not because women feel backed into a corner and like they don't have a choice, but because they have the support and resources to be enabled to make their own decisions about their bodies and to navigate this important part of their lives.
So this debate highlights the difficult balance between protecting women's rights and protecting unborn life, which is why there's no easy answer to this. So we asked our viewers what they think about this case. So we asked on our Arirang News YouTube channel, should abortion be illegal? And the results show that public opinion leans toward keeping abortion legal. So 67% of respondents said abortion should not be illegal, while 33% said it should. So the numbers suggest that although a majority supports legal access to abortion, a significant portion of the public still do believe stronger legal restrictions are necessary. And the abortion debate doesn't end with legal time limits. So advances in prenatal testing have also raised difficult questions about this time, disability, ethics, and reproductive choice. So why has abortion over fetal disabilities become so controversial?
Well, there was a very viral case that I think reignited this debate. A well-known American YouTuber announced that he and his wife had decided to terminate their pregnancy after prenatal testing showed that the baby had a high likelihood of having Down syndrome. And this in and of itself caused a lot of controversy, especially because they had posted their entire pregnancy journey up to that point online, even a gender reveal celebration. So their audience really felt invested in the process. But I think what really got them in hot water was the way they worded it. So they said that they hoped to try again to get a, quote, better outcome. And for people with disabilities and parents of people with disabilities, I think this was really painful to hear because it made it sound like a person with a disability is just a bad outcome, just a worse result. And it made it feel like their lives just weren't worth living. So I think they could have worded it a bit better. I do think that it is a personal choice for your family, what you think is best for your family. But a lot of people were saying that if you don't believe that you can provide the proper care, perhaps you could put the baby up for adoption so that someone could give it the love and care that it deserves. But yes, it was an extremely controversial case that happened, and it is something that is still ongoing, this debate.
So we're now going to move on to our second debate question of the day. So as prenatal screening becomes more advanced, expectant parents are sometimes faced with life-changing decisions before a child is even born. So once again, we'll ask our panelists to share their views about this difficult ethical dilemma. So, Julian, should abortion be allowed if a fetus is likely to have a disability?
That's quite a difficult question indeed. Well, every child deserves the same love and respect from the parents, well, with or without a disability. In fact, some critics of this case have compared that way of thinking to eugenics and the belief that some lives are more valuable than others, arguing that we should never judge the value of a life by a medical diagnosis. Well, during my pregnancy, I did have one of those screening that the YouTuber had at around 11 weeks. This is a test that helps assess the risk of conditions such as Down syndrome. And the results suggested to me I do have a higher risk of Down syndrome for my baby, and we had to wait for another 10 days medical test to know the final result. Those days were incredibly terrible.
I can imagine.
Yes, we cried for 10 days almost. My husband and I had already agreed that even if our baby had Down syndrome, well, we would continue the pregnancy and raise our child with love. Yes, but the results came back normal and we were deeply relieved. But, think about that. It's also made me wonder what decision other parents would make if the results were the other way around in the same situation. And prenatal tests, as you mentioned, which assess a baby's health before birth, are quite important because they help parents prepare for a child's future, the medical care. But they can also place families in an extremely difficult position, especially when the future can never be predicted with uncertainty. Yes, the answer isn't fewer children with disabilities. It's better support for the families who raise them, because every child deserves a chance.
Right, you shared a really personal story with us, so thank you for that. And it's a personal decision for everyone. Everyone's situation is different, everyone's values are different, which is why this is a complex situation and issue. So, Brooke, what's another take on this?
Well, so I haven't shared this before, but I actually have a chronic genetic disease, and I took the lives of one of my relatives. So when I think about this case, I think, what if my parents had some sort of test where they could have screened and seen that I was going to be diagnosed with this and suffer the way that I have? What decision would they have made? And it's a very frightening prospect, because even though I have suffered a lot, I wouldn't trade my life for anything. I still find it very fulfilling despite the hospital visits and all of the other difficulties. I'm glad I'm here. So I understand why people were very upset by this case, because one thing my dad always says to me is that technology always gets better. So there could be a cure someday for what I suffer with, just like there could be a cure and further treatments for other disabilities and illnesses out there. So I would say we should be careful with how we talk about this. I understand that every family has to make the decision that is best for them, but if you're going to post that journey online, I think you should be careful with your words, because we want to make sure that people have hope. There's always hope. Even if you are living with a disability or an illness, that doesn't mean that your life isn't worthwhile, and I think that's really important to remember.
Right, thank you so much for sharing that with us, Brooke. So on one hand is the belief that every life has equal value regardless of disability, while on the other hand could be the view that parents should have the freedom to make deeply personal decisions based on their family circumstances. So this also raises broader questions about how much support society should provide to families raising children with disabilities. So we wanted to hear directly from our viewers on this case as well. So we ran a poll on our channel asking, what do you think about abortion when the fetus is likely to have a disability? So let's take a look at the results, and here's what it showed. So the results show a clear majority favor leaving the decision up to the parents. So 81% of respondents said it's a personal choice, while 19% said abortion in this situation is unethical. So the results suggest that most viewers see the decision as one that should be made by the individual or family rather than by society or the government. Another issue that's been drawing attention is not just whether abortion should be allowed, but how it is accessed in the first place. So there's a certain abortion pill that's causing a lot of controversy. So why has it sparked so much conversation? What is it?
This is actually covering the headlines right now. Well, another issue making headlines in Korea is this pill known as mifepristone. This is an abortion pill used during early pregnancy. Well, it is to end a pregnancy without surgery. In fact, the World Health Organization considers it a safe and effective option when used correctly under medical supervision. It's already approved in many countries, more than 100 countries, including France and the UK. However, it has not yet been approved in Korea, partly because there are still no clear boundaries, legal standards governing abortion, that is. Well, so the debate is no longer just about the drug itself, but about how abortion should be regulated. Without clear laws, we're back to square one. Until the law becomes clear, the controversy is likely to continue, and sometimes the hardest part isn't the medicine, it's the missing rules.
True.
Right, and now for our third and final debate question going off of that. In your opinion, then, should South Korea approve legalized abortion?
That's a very complicated question indeed.
Right.
Well, I would be concerned indeed if the medical became freely available to everybody without proper medical checks before taking it. A proper doctor needs to confirm the stage of pregnancy, assess the woman's overall health condition. Without these safeguards, the medication could be taken incorrectly and lead to serious complications. And I'm particularly concerned about the online sales, unregulated online sales, where counterfeit products and misuse may be difficult to control. So if it's approved, it should only be prescribed after a proper diagnosis by a doctor and used under medical supervision. So, access may matter, but safety must come first.
So Brooke, do you have anything to add to that?
Well, I think the issue is that if they don't create a path toward obtaining this medication in a safe way, it's out there. There are ways to get it. But unfortunately, if you leave it up to that means that people might be getting counterfeit products or unregulated products that are very unsafe and dangerous to use. So I think it would be better to just incorporate the medicine into the healthcare system. It's already used internationally, like we said, so there are established medical guidelines set in place that would be helpful. And if the government approves this medicine, again, that means that they can actually regulate it. It's not going to be all left up to these illegal sellers. And that means women are not going to be taking this product, this unknown product by themselves. They'll actually have the guidance of a medical professional. So I think that would be the safest option.
Right. So, as we've heard today, abortion raises complex legal, ethical, and personal questions, as this debate is about far more than legislation alone. In different countries and different individuals continue to reach very different conclusions. It also challenges us to consider how society can better support women, families, healthcare professionals, and also children. And moving forward, finding solutions will require thoughtful discussions like the one we had today, and also continued public engagement. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. But News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 in Korea time with more stories and discussions. Big thanks to Chuyeon.
Thank you for having me.
And also Brooke.
Thank you very much.
And to our viewers, thank you so much for watching. And perhaps the question is not only where we draw the line, but how we support those standing on either side of it. We are
News Generation.